Thank you for joining me here on the last segment on today's show, just to go over my basic reactions and just thoughts on some more of the top 100 player rankings that have been dropping. This week we'll conclude the NFL Network's, rankings of these players. I think it'll be tomorrow or on Friday where they come out with the final top 10. But in the meantime, I haven't touched on this list since basically it came out with players 100 through 81, just because I think those players in between there, you can it's hard to make an argument on where they should be ranked because those are some weird numbers where it's like about average, where they're ranked. It doesn't mean too much. Not to discredit it, but I feel like once you get into the 30s, the 40s, you start really getting into the players where you can have a little bit more debate here. So back on here talking about the player rankings, 40 through 31, we're going to start off with 40 and then make our way down. Here, I have it on here just to show you guys as I go through the list. Starting with number 40, Davante Adams. Then we move on to Joe Burrow at 39, which was a surprise for me. Sauce Gardner at 38 right after him. Quinnen Williams at 37 and Tua Tagovailoa at 36. And then, just to go through the whole list before I give my thoughts, at 35, we have Josh Hines Allen there for the Jacksonville Jaguars. At 34, Jordan Love, the new highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Puka Nacua at 33 after having a sensational rookie season. Another Williams brother, also playing for the New York Jets. Quincy Williams, very high at 32. And to round it off, Deron Bland at 31 after leading the NFL in interceptions. And that's the list. That is where it's at right now. And we're going to go back to 40 and talk about Davante Adams here for a second because he dropped 27 spots from his previous placement on this list from last year, and it's odd for me. It's odd for me to think 40 players better than Davante Adams. I guess the criteria to rank these players is a little bit different. Obviously, the team success has played into this because there's no way there's 40 players better than Davante Adams. He was still individually top 10 in receptions, top 15 in yards, tied for 8th in touchdowns, obviously. And because the wide receiver position is so dependent on a lot of other things, the offensive line, the scheme, and the quarterback, essentially, it's hard to put up the numbers that Davante Adams you'd think and expect him to have with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, obviously. But that wasn't the case. Obviously, it's out of his control, but I just thought 40 was a little bit low for Davante because just based on resume, legacy, if you want to use that word, to me Davante should probably be at least in the 20s in my opinion. That's where he was last year, and I guess the team success is very heavy on how they rank these players just based on stats and how he's played, but the fact that he's getting maybe a little bit older, I don't think that really matters too much. He is still arguably a top 3, top 4 receiver in the game, so that one raised my antenna a little bit. At 40 was a little bit weird. But then you get to Joe Burrow and how much he dropped. You can kind of understand it a little bit because last year he was number 6 and now he drops 33 spots. Just basically because he wasn't healthy enough at all this year. He had a great run of games. I think it was a 5-week span where he was just fantastic for the Bengals. It looked like they were going to make that late season push to make the playoffs, but then he hurts his wrist and it all goes downhill from there. But again, I can understand why the injury, played into this, but you could have thrown him a little bit more of a bone here, I think, because, it is Joe Burrow now. I think he's done enough when he's healthy, but I guess on the other side, these health concerns are starting to build up. But 39 seemed a little low for me for Joe Burrow. Then you get into Sauce Gardner, and again, I think it's a little low because when we talked about ESPN's top defensive back rankings, Sauce Gardner was 3rd on that list, and arguably, for a lot of people, he could be number 1 on that list, and for a top 3 defensive back to be at 38, I think that's not doing the position justice overall because, again, the stats don't pop up because nobody really throws it to Sauce Gardner, and based on who he is as a player, I think with the respect that I think the defensive back position should have, he should probably be in the 20s in my opinion. He dropped 15 spots, so last year he was 23. if my math is correct. Apologies if it's not. But again, it's weird because he's a top 3 defensive back. But right now, the production, it's hard to measure for him at this point because of the position that he plays. But again, I felt it was a little low, and that means that Pat Surtain and Denzel Ward are probably going to be in the teens right now. And to say that that's that big of a gap, I don't think that's accurate either. So the 3 players already that I mentioned were a little low for me. But then you get into Quinnen Williams, and he's at number 37. After not making the list last year, it's pretty. I think it's a good spot for Quinnen. He is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. Kind of getting that notoriety this past year and even the year before that, and now heading into this year, I think it's a great year with the circumstances that the Jets face now with an established defense. Aaron Rodgers hopefully playing the majority of the games. I think he can have a real opportunity to shine and be one of the best players at his position, and 37 seems like a good starting point for me. I didn't really have too much of a problem there. The first Williams brother that we're going to talk about, and then to round out this part of the list, 36 we have Tua Tagovailoa, and it's odd with Tua just because he jumped up a lot really from last year, from 82 up to 36, and he is one of the highest paid quarterbacks right now. So it is deserved, I think, this jump based on the stats that he had, the production that he had, and overall the regular season that he had with how well he played and healthy he was. I think there's a good spot for him overall. And for anybody that thinks that the regular season shouldn't play too much into it, Dak hasn't been ranked yet, and he's going to be in the teens also at least. So they were right there neck and neck in terms of production and stats, and there's still a pretty big gap between them, at least 20 to 18 spots. So, that's kind of my rebuttal to that for anybody thinking this might be too high, thinking he's only a regular season quarterback. Dak, not too much more successful in the playoffs, and he's going to be in the teens, and he's been in the NFL longer. So I think there's a good jump for Tua. I think 36 isn't too high at all for him after the year that he had, one of the highest paid quarterbacks. Hopefully he jumps up a little bit more to validate that contract, but that's where he's at. Then to jump here to the next part of the list, just to go quickly through it, Josh Hines-Allen at 35 after missing out last year on the list and making it this year and jumping all the way into spot number 35. He was in a prove-it year, so he had to really ball out, and he did exactly that. I think this is another great spot for him after he had 17.5 sacks, which was second in the NFL only to TJ Watt. To fit him in here at 35 and make his presence known now as one of the best edge rushers, hopefully he can continue it and be a little bit more consistent, but that was a great way to validate this contract that he did earn this offseason, so I didn't have any problems with him being 35. Jordan Love at 34, again, the first time on the list for him at 34. Not too much of an issue. He is the highest paid quarterback right now, so if he's starting at 34 and, the standards that come, at least to me, with being the highest paid quarterback, he should climb next year if this year hopefully is a better year for him and the Packers overall. That's the expectation for me now. So there's a good starting spot. I don't really have an issue with him starting here based on surpassing everyone's expectations last year, but now I'm expecting him to climb a little bit more. If you're going to get paid like a top guy, you have all this hype around you, I don't think it's too much to ask already now in his second year as the starter to expect more of a jump, but no problem with him starting at 34. Then you have Puka, again, first time on the list, now heading into his second year. A historic rookie season, so some might have some problems with a rookie essentially getting placed in the top, nearly in the top 30 of all NFL players. That could cause some issues among people, but I think how much he brought to the Los Angeles Rams offense and how valuable he was to them when Cooper Kupp went down and you didn't really have anybody to look to. For him to step up like he did as such a young player and show the poise, his maturity, I think 33 isn't too high for him, but now I'm also expecting him to jump up a little bit more to build on that rookie year. It's hard for such a high standard that he set, but I think he's capable of doing that. Then you look at another Williams brother, Quincy Williams, a guy that not a lot of people talk about, honestly, but he has started to make a name for himself a little bit more. The first time on the list for him, so compared to his brother Quinnen, maybe this was a bit too high. Just a little bit. I have my doubts about it. He shouldn't drop to like 50 something, but I didn't think they'd put him this high. That's just where my doubt is. I didn't think the players, he was so highly regarded among other players, but it's good for him. You know, he made the Pro Bowl this year, or All-Pro. He was an All-Pro this year for the first time, so that kind of boosted his chances, and now more people are getting to notice him and his brother along on that New York Jets defense. And then just to close it out, DaRon Bland, you know, the stats speak for themselves. The first time he made the list, he overall, with him making the list for the first time, that makes it 6 out of the 10 players in this section that are new to the top 100 list. So that's exciting to see a lot of new players kind of making the names for themselves. But DaRon Bland, here to just close it out, a lot of interceptions, was very great as a shutdown corner somewhat for the Dallas Cowboys. At 31, I think, you know, it's kind of hard to keep him out of these rankings so high just because of how much he produced on the field, but not too much of a problem. It's just with a lot of these guys being first-timers on this list, now I'm looking to see how they respond to that, sort of validating the praise that they got from their peers now in another sort of prove-it year for Josh Hines-Allen, for Jordan Love, for Tua, for Puka, all these guys that are making the list now as first-timers. The expectations are now there. I'm hoping that all of them meet it in 2024, but that does it for the rankings. If you guys have any disagreements with them, please let me know in the comment section of this video. But for right now, we will head to the end of this show. That'll wrap it up. That will do it for today's show. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's episode. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as making sure to follow the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show, check out both YouTube channels where there's more NFL content in different forms of media on both of the YouTube channels for you guys to enjoy and delve into. And as a final reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more discussions and conversations around NFL storylines going on right now with me, Manny Maradiegue, as your host. Again, thank you guys for joining me. I hope to see you guys all with me again back here tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to